Hey, how's everybody doing today? This is Mark Brody back here with another episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And this is a very special episode for me. It's a milestone episode. This is the 50th episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And for this episode, I'm really excited to have Michelle Brigman on as my guest today. I don't know where this conversation is going to go. Michelle and I will start talking, and all of a sudden, we'll go down one rabbit hole and then we're chasing purple squirrels somewhere else. So just don't know where this conversation is going to go. But my experience with Michelle has been a high level of experience and expertise in the CX space, and she talks a lot also about any number of topics, and we'll get into them here. So, Michelle, thank you very much for joining me today, and tell our viewers a little bit of something about you and what are you up to these days?
Okay, first of all, before we go to that, can we just give you a big shout out, man? 50 podcasts is awesome. Like
Thank
it's
you.
because it takes work and commitment and planning and effort, and they're fun, but they take a lot of your time and effort. But you have a really great podcast. I have enjoyed listening to your episodes, and I just want to tell you congratulations because I
Thank you
know
very
I
much.
appreciate the work that goes into it. So thank you.
And as someone that produces her own podcast as well, you know how much fun this can be.
When you know, right?
Yeah. If you
But
know, you know. I love it.
yes, but okay, a little bit about me. Just real quick, I would tell you that I spent well over 2 decades in corporate leading customer experience strategies before customer experience was a thing, before we had ever heard of NPS, but it was about how do we keep customers happy coming back. So led the strategies, worked in contact center and operations, and really was privileged enough to work for some pretty awesome brands like that everybody knows. Was with Dell, I was with Citibank, 7-Eleven, and then decided to take a stint on the SaaS provider side and spent a couple of years with Medallia, which was a blast because I was now helping to serve the clients whose seat I had sat in for all those years before. So understanding their pain and with their goals. So that was a lot of fun. And then just recently, I took a big leap of faith and went
Mhm.
100% on my own. So I do part time CX consultancy work, and then I do part time work, really executive coaching around leadership, work life balance. And I absolutely love venturing out into this new place as well.
I love it. I love it. Now, please tell me that you had something to do with 7-Eleven Day, with the National Slurpee holiday.
Yes.
Please tell me you had something to do with that.
Well, I wish I could tell you it was my brainchild, but it was not.
Yeah.
Now I did show up every year and work. Let me tell you, working a 7-Eleven day
Mhm.
is an experience. It is the most chaotic, crazy, messy, fun day ever because you never know what you're going to get. So it's a
Mm.
blast. And if you don't
I
know what
love
that
it.
is, now it's a 7-Eleven week, but they'll give away free Slurpees on that day to celebrate their birthday with all their clients. And imagine
Yes.
some walking in there with the 16-year-old who's babysitting the 7 kids in the neighborhood all to get their Slurpees. Yeah, it's total chaos awesomeness.
I will tell you, when in a call center I worked at a few years ago for 7-Eleven Day, I was dubbed because I was leading the department. And I said, "Well, let me go ahead and go get some Slurpees for everybody." Brought and went there, brought them all back, and everybody's like, "Never heard of this 7-Eleven Day. What is this awesomeness that you're speaking of?" And it was fun. It
It's
was fun.
so fun. So fun.
Yes. Excellent. Well, you've had an extremely successful career. We've talked a little bit about some of your highlights and some of the great war stories that you've had over your career. Um, and I'm particularly interested about learning from you, and maybe share with the audience, at this stage, how would you react to this comment, phrase, sentence? At this stage in my career, I wish I can go back in time and tell my younger self X. And by telling yourself that, how would that have helped you navigate your career?
So battle scars are a funny thing, aren't they? Because
Yes, they are.
as we look back, those battle scars give us all kinds of wisdom. And I think you asking me that question really brings a story to mind. And I kind of call it my rock star story. So this is what I would say I learned and I would tell my younger self because
Okay.
it was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Hmm.
But as in my career, I mean, you know how it is. We want to be the rock stars. We
Yes.
work on projects. We give our all. We get lots of kudos whenever we're doing a really good job, and we think that is success. That's the objective. And I
Hmm.
was in that place. I was. My career was thriving. I
Yeah.
had been promoted multiple times. I loved it. Probably, feeling pretty cocky, feeling kind of proud of myself at what I was doing. Well, we were going through a big organizational change. And through that change, the executives were really trying to figure out who's our bench strength that is ready to step into some larger roles because these were big changes. So they took their high pose, which I was considered a high potential. So those are the folks, for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, very corporate speak, it's the employees who they think these can manage, these people can promote at least two levels up. And we want to be making an investment in them for long term of scalability across the organization. So I was in that bucket. And I had to go through this extensive interview process because they were trying to figure out what was my readiness. How far away was I from the next big job? And it went really well, and I'm feeling really good about it. Well, I get my feedback, and it was a formal feedback process. It was our HR generalist, it was my boss, and it was myself. And it was this big pamphlet because I had met with 5 different C-suite executives. And they set me down and the feedback they gave me was, well, we're not sure Michelle is ready for a really tough assignment, a really difficult assignment. And I, I was pretty confused by that. Like, why would they think I wasn't ready yet? Like, I'm showing up, I'm bringing my A game. I've got great results. My scorecard is green, like everything is awesome. And what I learned from that was the reason that there was a question mark in the executive's mind was every time I showed up in the staff meeting, every week I gave my update. My scorecard was always green. They had never seen me try to dig my way out of a really difficult situation. Now, my boss had seen me,
Yep.
but the executives at that top level had not. They only saw the rock star story.
Yes.
And that right there changed everything about my career because it was the first time I realized that you have to show and demonstrate how you handle a variety of situations. You being always delivering isn't necessarily going to get you where you need to be. And my response back was I literally asked the HR and my boss, I said, what is the crappiest job right now that no one wants to do, but it's really important?
Yep.
And I said, then that's the job I want. And that changed the trajectory of my career. I gained so much wisdom. I understood what it meant to make yourself marketable.
Yep.
And that is something I would tell my younger self is get really comfortable putting yourself in very uncomfortable situations because it's through those bumpy experiences that a couple of things happen. One, you get to learn what are your natural skills and ability, and that's going to help you figure out what you love.
Mhm.
Two, when you put yourself in those really uncomfortable situations, you also learn what you're made of. And when you get to the other side of that difficult, the peaks and valleys, you get to the other side of that valley, that's where self confidence comes from. And then
Yep.
finally, what I learned really hard lesson was that whenever you're out there and you're putting yourself in all those situations, and you're showing how you handle it, now you're building your credibility and your brand with other people. So get uncomfortable or get comfortable putting yourself in very uncomfortable situations.
I love that. And that's something, even not just from from a professional environment standpoint, but even from a networking standpoint, being comfortable with being uncomfortable in situations that you put yourself in. I think that's some great advice, because a lot of people just as they've come up through their careers are like, okay, I'm okay with the happy path,
Yeah,
the green lights down the straightaway. I'm good with that. No friction. I'll be at the top rung of the ladder here in no time at all. But what people don't understand is what happens when you come up against a really bad situation. So I love the fact that you took that head on and said, okay, give me a challenge, give me the worst of the worst, and I'll make it work, and you'll see.
that's
Um,
right. And,
yeah,
and in that story, the job I took, I had to basically displace 50% of an organization. Nobody
yeah,
wanted that job. Like I was
mhm,
part of that leadership team. But what happened is the conversation. Now, when I showed up to those same executive meetings, I was in there with tough conversations. But what they saw over time is just like I had done with the other responsibilities I had, the story changed from really bad to actually, here's how this is going really well. But they
yeah.
they were with me in the trenches and were with me to see me come out of the other side. And
Yes,
that is, like I say, if you are sitting there going, I'm always the A player, that's great. Just know that that also has risks because people don't know how you can handle different situations, and you are limiting yourself if you don't
yes,
get uncomfortable.
I love it. um you're right, too often, like we said, people just want to be okay with where they're at in the moment and don't want to challenge themselves, uh,
Yeah.
especially as they're rising through the ranks. Um, great piece of advice. Now, you and I have had. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say something else on that. I think
Yeah,
that's why I was so willing because I learned a lot. That moment, I
yeah,
learned a lot. And if
mhm,
you think about, I gave a little bit of my history in the beginning. I made big industry changes. I went from, well, before I started at Dell, I was in the cosmetics industry. I was
yeah,
cosmetics to technology to financial services to retail, franchise retail to
yeah,
SaaS tech provider. And but it was because of that turning point that I
mhm,
went, you know what? The more I can demonstrate, I'm terrified. Like I'm
yeah,
50% comfortable in what I'm taking on, and I'm
mhm.
50%, my Lord, what did I do? But I also know that coming out on the other side, I'm just going to continue to build credibility, gain experience, build confidence, and build my brand. And it has been invaluable. So there's a lot of ways you can take that kind of nugget of getting uncomfortable in the path that you choose, the industries you choose, how you want your story arc to go throughout your career. And I'm so thankful that I did that.
So let me ask you a question about that, because if you hadn't haven't gotten that feedback at that time in your career, would you have proactively made that choice that you did?
I would never have taken that job.
Yeah.
I would have never taken that job. And and it's funny because a couple of years before I had an opportunity to take kind of that job. Let me quote what I said to my executive. It's like something going, some of the stuff that came out of my mouth. Like I just look back and think, good Lord. I literally looked at that executive and I said, I don't want that job. that group is the pit. That is like going into the pit. Fast forward a few years later, I go into that group and the job, and I would tell you it was one of my most rewarding roles I had ever had. I wouldn't have done it. I probably, who knows? We don't know. But I don't think I would have been as comfortable taking risks if I didn't understand the benefits, the rewards that can come to me in my career by taking a risk. I think I would have been afraid and thought, well, I'm only going to do what I feel confident that I can basically do today. And I feel really confident that I'm going to succeed. Now I kind of like going in there going, oh, I bet on me. I know I'll work hard. I know I will figure it out, but man, it might be ugly for a while. And I'm okay
Mhm.
with that. And I don't think that I would have been as comfortable in those situations had it not been for that moment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we never know what we don't know, but being okay with taking that leap of faith and saying, okay, let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice,
Yes.
no snake eyes, no sevens, whatever. I don't play
Maybe get
craps,
some shoes.
obviously, but and um, you know, you and I have had some recent conversations, and recently you attended the Austin Contact Center Alliance
It was
Women in
awesome.
Leadership Tea. Thank you. I mean, you made I can tell you made an impact on a lot of the attendees there. So first of all, thank you very much for attending
Can I do a
as
plug
well.
for you? If
Of
anybody
course.
is in Austin or visiting Austin, that was my first time to join that event. And what a great group of people, and what an incredible, just what an incredible, I'll call it fellowship and relationship building and valuable content. So if you're in this space and you're in that area, you definitely want to get plugged in. I was just, I mean, I drove 3 hours, 3.5 hours to get there, and I would do it again. Like I really was glad I was a part of that. So
We, you know,
I just
we
want to
appre-
say
we
that to the listener.
Yeah, we really appreciated having you there, and knowing it was a 3.5 hour drive, and the fact that you felt it was worth it, mate. That's awesome, and thank you very much for that plug as well. Um, but yesterday, I mean that event was really it's going to be an annual event for us, but one of the things that I heard coming um, um, out of the conversations throughout that day is the advice that you would give your younger self. um, would it be different advice that you may provide to women leaders um, that you may be coaching as well? So basically, is it a situation that this advice was really good for me, but as a woman leader in whatever the space is, um, it may not be the right advice to give to someone else. Love to get your thoughts or insights on that.
I well, I think the thing, and I'm probably gonna pivot that just a little bit, because what has been fascinating to me, particularly with young leaders, and women have some unique challenges, and we can spend some time talking about that too. But what
Yeah.
I would say just to younger leaders coming up, and whether I'm mentoring with someone, I'm coaching someone. I have two kids. My kids are 16 and 24. Like, what do I see and what am I witnessing?
Mhm.
These young people are so stressed out about thinking they need to have all the answers.
Mhm.
And I think that knowing what I know now and the experiences I know now, just
Uh-huh.
the advice I give is like, release yourself from believing that you have to have your whole life mapped out, and because you are doing so much stuff to like prove that you're good enough. I
Yeah.
mean, I was talking to this young lady the other day. So she's going back, she's getting her MBA. She was
Yeah.
working full time, getting her MBA, young. I mean, and she's gets on the phone with me for a coaching session, and Mark, she is like giving me her resume, and she's involved in all of these. She's working, she's involved in all these organizations, and she's going out and she's like, I'm trying to be competitive. And I just listened and listened. And I was like, but how are you doing? She's
Yeah.
got, well, I mean, I'm working. I said, no, no, how are you doing? How are you sleeping? How is your stress? And she stopped for a minute because she's like, oh my God, Michelle, I'm so stressed out. And I'm like, and just really spending some time to go. I mean, we do it to our kids in high school. Like, you have, what's the college? What's your career plan? Now, you tell me,
Hmm.
how many, how many times have you changed your mind, evolved? Like, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything then. And
Yes.
what I thought I knew, I didn't. So if you are in your 20s, think of it as like a decade to play, not a irresponsible play, but like
Yes.
experiment, try different jobs. You don't even know who you are. You don't even know your gifts and talents, and you don't know what you love. This is your decade to like do all the things, not because they said this is the ticket to success, because let me tell
Uh-huh.
you, so many people I see now older, back to your question about older women and men, they all of a sudden they follow the path we all say is the route to go, and then they get to
Uh-huh.
this place and they're like, okay, wait a minute. Is this like what I was working so hard for? Because I'm kind of
Yes.
stressed out. I may have a nice paycheck, but I don't really like this anymore. And you feel so boxed in that you can't unravel it. And you never even gave yourself an opportunity to play. So play. Don't
Yes.
think you have to have it all.
It's funny. Back when I started college, um, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to law school. I'm like, I don't know about that. I want to be a meteorologist. I want to
Yeah.
get in. I want to be a weatherman. I love the weather. And no, no, that didn't work out. And then I ended up getting my degree in history. And so it's like, okay, make some pivots and everything. And the first job I was working at, my boss at that time, um, says, okay, you've gotten your degree. Awesome, congratulations. What are you going to do with it? I'm like, well, I got a history degree. I'm going to go do history things or something.
Yep.
You know, I'll go to law school. Well, I already decided I really wasn't interested in law school. Well, it was interesting, but I didn't want more schooling.
Mhm.
And so I ended up, um, applying for a position that it took them 9 months to make a decision about me for that very first supervisory role in a contact center. Um, Now, talk about a humbling experience. You got this degree, and what are you going to do for your initial career? I'm going to work in a call center. None of us who started off in the industry ever thought that we would be working in a call center.
Amen.
You know,
Amen. I didn't
um,
even know what a call center was.
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, what do you do? Well, I answer questions. Oh, okay. All right, that's cool. And it's evolved into something so much more. It is such an
Yes.
amazing career that people have made for themselves over the years. And there's so
Yes.
many different aspects of it that going back to your point earlier, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and just seeing where things take you, and you don't have to be so stressed out about things. I love that.
No,
You know.
no. And that is like, I think that's a gift, because I think it's a gift you
Mhm.
can give yourself, because otherwise you are teaching yourself to overdo it, do everything, prove it to
Yeah.
everybody. And that's what leads these people to, now so many people are, well, burnout, or they're dealing
Yeah.
with health issues, or mental, I mean, all of these emotional and mental and physical ailments that come, so much of it's
Yep.
generated from stress. And it's like we're causing so much of it ourselves, because we think we've got
Yes.
to measure up to this expectation that our parents gave us, that our society gives us, our friends give
Hmm.
us. And releasing yourself from that is just a beautiful, beautiful gift.
It's funny. I have a friend of mine who started his own. I mean, he started a couple different businesses, and I mean, just always forward thinking. And he and I had lunch a few weeks back, and he said to me, he's like, I'm okay with not selling a company, for several million dollars, and trying to build a company and selling it for several million dollars, whatever. He's like, I'm okay with what I have because I've already exceeded what others' expectations were of me.
Mm.
And he's like, I'm at peace with that, and I'm okay with that. And I'm paraphrasing the conversation, but
Right.
that's essentially, where his headspace was. And um, this is somebody that's like, foot to the floor on that accelerator. Like, I mean, his energy levels at a 15, all the time, and it's awesome to see how as we gain our experience, become a little bit more seasoned, that we're okay to go ahead and let go and not and be what we're okay for ourselves and our family, and not what others expect of us. But it's hard to impart that on younger folks, for sure.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right. And then I
yeah.
think, but you hit a great point talking about even his story is it isn't it isn't too late to then stop and try to think about, well, what is, I've lived a few decades, right? I've learned a lot. Is
Mhm.
the am I still creating a life and a lifestyle that is based on what I was told when I was 18 or
Yeah.
25 that good looks like, or not? Because now is probably a really great time to
Mhm.
say, what is my new vision of success? And am I doing the things that are supporting and enabling that? And what we often find is we're not, but we've never paused to step back and reflect on what we have built, or we feel that we're too far down a path that we can't unravel it. And that's
Mhm.
part of just, that's what I say. I think that's what leads us into this place of dissatisfaction and burnout. But
Yeah,
it's not too, it's really isn't too late. It's
exactly. S- Step back, smell the flowers, enjoy life for what it is, and control what you can control at the end of the day, you know. Um,
easier said than done, Mark.
It
Easier.
it is, and I know both of us have struggled with that over our careers, to get to that point where we're at now, where you can actually
Yes.
talk about this, because a few years back, I mean, it was not popular to talk about, um, mental wellness,
Right.
in the way that it's being talked about today,
Right.
and being okay um, with saying no, or walking away, or things like that. I mean, if there's one positive outcome from the pandemic, it's that, in my opinion, you know.
Yes.
Um,
100%
you know,
agree with you.
yeah. So, for someone that's at an inflection point in their career, I think it's a great, what we've talked about is a great segue. For someone that's at that inflection point, they may have just gotten laid off, from what they thought was going to be the job or the company that they were going to stay at for a long time. But they're trying to decide, okay, well, what's next? Or they walked away voluntarily, um, and because it wasn't the right environment, it didn't give them what they needed to be energized on a daily basis. What what advice might you have for folks that are at that inflection point for themselves?
I love people who are at the place where they're ready for change. Like that gets me so excited. So I love when I get these phone calls, and whether again we coach, we mentor, we talk to people all the time. I know you do too, Mark. And but here's what I find. People panic. They panic and they start like throwing their resume out. They just start this the splatter gun approach, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm going to throw it all and I'm going to hope something sticks. And then
Hmm.
because it's that sense of security that they're chasing.
Yeah.
Um, without going down to a conversation around sort of our identity and how we unfortunately get so intertwined with our title and our career and our company that we don't know who we are without it. I'm going to table that and say that's part of it. But uh, let let me tell I'm going to tell a story. I think things can be
Yes. I
vague
love
through
it.
stories so much. So the other day I was talking to Lisa. Her name's Lisa. And she had lost her job and she had been, had been interviewing. And she's like, oh, I'm a sales manager. If you know anybody that's hiring for sales managers. And I'm listening to the conversation and I mean, sales managers are kind of a dime a dozen. She comes to me. I don't really know how to help her. I know the industry she was in. It was a retail industry. But like, okay, I guess I can help you. And that would be kind of how the conversation would typically go. But in our conversation, I'm like, okay, Lisa, so this, if you're at this point, this is what I'm going to ask you to ask yourself.
Mhm.
Think about an initiative, a project that you worked on that like you were so proud of. It doesn't matter if you were a sales man, in her case, was she a sales manager at the time or something else? Like, what was the work? And like, really think about it. What kind of people were around you? What were you doing specifically? Like, on a day-to-day basis, what did you enjoy a part of the day? And just really start to unravel and unpack that because I believe there's so many golden nuggets in this. So in her case, as I'm talking to Lisa, what I learned is her best work came when she was building a new sales team, not running the ship, running the operation of an existing sales team. She loved every time. She had a couple examples where she created the training content, she hired the people, she onboarded them, she really developed the systems and processes. And that was like freaking knocked it out of the park, loved the work, the team thrived, all of that stuff. And I said, okay, show me your resume. Where in your resume does it say anything about this? Right. So if this is your happy spot, instead of splatter approach,
Yes.
really, now you get to go, all right, well, what companies would be in that place? Obviously, it's startups, small companies, or companies who are open a new division. Is it specific to retail? Is it specific to other industries? What?
Mhm.
Well, now imagine she comes to you and she says, "Hey, Mark, hey, I'm looking for a job as a sales manager, and I'm really targeting somebody who's really trying to build their startup sales team. They maybe not have systems developed. They need to onboard their team. They need to like now you go, oh wait, I probably know someone who's looking for that kind of skill set versus this ambiguous, I'm looking for a sales manager job, right? So stop splatter approach, really take time, write down those stories where you were so happy because in that is going to be your GPS. And the other thing with this is so many times people think, well, I got to cast a wide net. Like I can't be too targeted. But think about it. The wide net was ambiguous. The specific small niche net is very specific, but man, you know what? Well, you know where those people show up. Where can I go follow industry conferences for people who are doing startups? Where can I go be part of an organization? What LinkedIn channels? What web? Like, where are these people? Because these
Yes.
people they have a community. And now you show up in their community with your value proposition and your proven skills and experiences. You're going to
Yes.
be you've got a targeted plan that you've put on the table. That would be my advice for somebody in transition because it freaking works and you feel so much more
Yes.
empowered instead of like, Lord, I hope today is the day that some random thing I threw out there is going to catch. This will get you where you feel like you're playing offense and you are in control of your career.
I love it. I've given some similar advice. Don't chase money or title because if you do that, you might as well just put yourself in the middle of the ocean and hope somebody picks you up.
Right.
Um, and if you're very specific as far as what it is that you're looking for and the why that's important to you, people don't. some folks have a very difficult time about being introspective. I'm sure you've seen this in the conversations that you've had. It's like, why is that so important to you? Where, and I love the part that you just brought up about what is it that's bringing you joy, joy, passion, purpose, things like that. That makes you not feel like you're going to be so stressed out and working 24/7, and this is just something that you enjoy doing. So um,
That's right.
I love that. We're getting to the point of our conversation. We've talked about a lot of stuff. We may have to have you back for, like, brews with Brohawk or something at some point in time.
I'm in. I'm in.
Excellent, excellent. You may have to, I mean, maybe it's a Wednesday wine down or something. I don't know. But we've gotten to the point of this conversation where it's called the speed round. And are you ready for this?
I guess you scare me
Yeah.
a little bit.
You just never know what's going to happen here. So, first question, what fact about Michelle would people be surprised to learn about you?
I I think that every single person that has ever really come to work for me wish they knew this before they got on my team. So I like to write parodies, song parodies
Nice.
at work. It's particularly at work. So if somebody's having a birthday or there's an event or someone's leaving the company or they're having a baby, I will typically write some kind of song parody, but I recruit the people on my team to like learn it and they have to perform it in public forums.
I
So,
love it.
and if you think about, like one of the guys that work, well, okay, so some of you, so Jerry Campbell, 30-year, highly decorated military career, comes
Mhm,
to work in my group at City. Bless his heart. I then he or he we're not he I worked with him at City. He came and worked with me at 7-Eleven. And
mhm,
one day one of the guys is leaving on the team, and I'm like, okay, we are gonna hold paper plates, and here's what I need you to do with the motions, and here are the words, and y'all need to stomp your feet. And he just looks at me like, are what? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, oh no, these are job requirements that you have to
Yes.
participate in these shenanigans. And everybody,
Yes.
but it's so funny because you like because there's always that hidden like personality where people just go, okay, this is totally ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
Somehow I'm doing it. But the people, it's hilarious and they love it. And then they know they're gonna do it. They cringe, but yeah, it's this song parody thing. I don't know where it came from.
I
I gotta
absolutely
make work
love that.
fun.
Oh my gosh, you got to make work fun. I
I
mean,
know.
we just get bored, you know?
I
It's
know.
fun.
I,
It's it's funny. You remember the movie Elf?
of course.
My wife is probably gonna kill me for telling this story,
Oh,
but company that she worked at decided that they were gonna do like an elf contest or something like that. So she had to eat spaghetti with syrup on it.
syrup because he loved syrup.
Yes, exactly. And she's like, that was the most disgusting thing I ever did. But she was up and everybody was doing another, something, and it's just like, oh my God, that
Mark,
is hysterics.
one time I was at City. So I had the CEO of the global credit card organization
Mhm.
come through. We were doing an event, but he had to participate in this experience that my team created. And at the end of it, we had made him a candy bar necklace, like King Candy.
Uh-huh.
Hey, imagine like we're talking a CEO at a bank. Now,
Uh-huh. Not a
you
small
know,
bank, not a community
not
bank.
like the big, I mean, you could
Yeah.
just imagine he he was a trooper, man. He wore it. He like laughed. I bet he was like, "Get this thing off of me. I don't ever want to deal with her." Like there's like it goes back to that conversation you and I had before we started recording. Like, what are all the reasons Michelle should have been fired from her jobs in the past? This would be one of those. So
It sounds like a great book title in the future, just saying.
it's so fun. So fun.
And so, what's the second question? What's your go-to tactic for unwinding after a stressful day?
So I think it's going to depend on if I have a bunch of pin up energy that I need to get out, then I'm
Uh-huh.
probably gonna, like crank up. I love to cook, so it's probably going to be crank up the music in the kitchen, cook, and like some little dancing going on. Not good dancing,
Nice.
but I'm going to find my like that's going to be my energy. And if I can corral my kids to come in and join me, it's even better. Or at least just look at me like
Yes.
I'm a Fruit Loop. That's good too. But if I were like needed to detach from everything in the world, it would be either a nice slow walk outside. I love being in nature, or I love uh, sound meditation, like gong sound bath therapy,
Oh,
which
okay.
is not a physical bath in water, but
Yeah.
you have an instructor play these different frequencies on gongs or singing bowls, and
Okay.
it is like the most cool experience. And so that takes me to my happy place. So,
It's immersion in your senses as
yes,
opposed to, in your physical being. That's
yes.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Michelle, and I know you and I are going to continue to have more and more conversations going forward, and we're looking forward to having you come back down to Austin,
Love it.
in September. Hopefully we can get everything worked out and whatnot. But if someone wants to just pick your brain or find out other conferences or events that you might be interested in attending, or they want to see if you're going to be at a certain event, um, or just generally just want to pick your brain and learn some of these stories that you that you
A
have a treasure
million.
trove of. And um, what how can they go ahead and get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
You bet. Well, so there's a couple things I'd recommend. So first of all, definitely shoot me an invite on LinkedIn, because I love LinkedIn and I'm very active there, more so really than any other platform. But and off of I have two websites, and you can set up time to connect with me, just to call, like go there. So I like I said, I do a lot of executive or business leader coaching, and around just balance and happiness. And that's michellebrigman.com is my website for that. And then if you want to talk specific like CX and strategy, my website is advantagecx.com.
Okay.
And then I have to absolutely do a shameless plug for our podcast. So my podcast is Hard Won Wisdom. That's HARDWONWISDOM.com. And I'd love to just say a funny story because of who your audience is. My co host on that podcast, her name is Fawn Germer. And 20 years ago, when I was managing the executive escalations team at Dell, she was an upset customer.
Nice.
I like, you never know who enters your circle and your
Uh-huh.
world, where they come from. And we have nurtured this relationship for all these years. And a couple years ago now, we started the podcast, and it
That is
has been
awesome.
an absolute ride. So definitely check it out, because that's a lot of fun for us to do.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Michelle's podcast, you really need to. I mean, it's energizing. I'll put it that way.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you
um,
for having me. This has been so fun. I just love talking with you, and I love swapping stories and
yes,
maybe helping some of these folks a bit on
yeah.
their own journey.
I'm always humbled when I have folks with the level of experience, such as yourself and other guests of mine, because I learn so much from you in just like a 30 or 45 minute conversation. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining me on this episode, my 50th episode. And we're definitely gonna I'd love to have you back for beers with Brohawk at some time.
Anytime, just
Excellent.
holler.
Excellent. Michelle, thank you very much. And if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. There's more content coming over the summer. We'd love to have you. Definitely encourage you to like and subscribe to Michelle's podcast as well. Lots of great nuggets of information there. And looking forward to interacting with all of our any of our viewers, all of our viewers at some point in time. And just want to say once again, thank you, Michelle. Have a great rest of the day.